We are live. And hello, everyone. Welcome to the GMIHub Online. You are joining us on a Monday evening, and we have got a fabulous episode tonight. Tonight, we are joined with the Christian Guitar Girls group, of which we have 4 members, including the founding member, and I will introduce them in a little bit. But I just want to remind you, you're watching GMIHub Online on our YouTube channel. And if you have not subscribed already, feel free to like and subscribe this video because you are going to love what you're going to be hearing tonight, as well as go ahead and share this experience because it's not every day that you get 4 fabulous ladies on here to talk about songwriting, especially those that have been award winners and their songs have been on radios, and we'll tell you more. But with us, co-hosting with me, my guest co-host today is Chelsea Amber. You have seen Chelsea before. She was actually in our second webcast, so I'm honored to have her back with us. She is an award-winning songwriter, but she's also the founder of Christian Guitar Girls, and you will hear more about that from her. But also, she has brought 3 friends. We have, and I'll try and go in alphabetical order. Let's try that. We have Elena Smith. Elena Smith is a former band director from Arkansas. I think that's where she's in right now, and has been a missionary in Alsace, France. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Alsace, France. Okay. She's part of the leadership team at Église Joshua Church. And she is also a youth pastor. She actually began songwriting and guitar playing out there. So we're going to learn more about that. Welcome, Elena. I'm going to be so wanting to call you Alana, so I'm going to learn to say Elena. You can feel free to unmute. Also, we have Amy Savin with us. Amy is a powerful vocalist and songwriter. Her style of music is alternative rock, but such a strong message in her songs. Her latest album is Unveiled. And you can hear her influences like Paramore and Amanda Cook in songs like It's a Good Life and All We'll See, while her first record was more of a Bethany Delong-esque roots. Anyway, she is here, and I'm so glad that she's here. Thank you so much, Amy, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I should also mention that I know it's way belated, but 6-time GMA Award nominee. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I've already introduced Chelsea. We also have Jaylene Johnson. Jaylene Johnson is a career songwriter who has the honor of co-writing and releasing songs with some of Canada's greats, including Brian Dirksen, Amy Skye, and Luke McMaster. She's also worked with a lot of international artists from America, from New Zealand, and around the world. She's got so much to share. She's had her own albums, Potter and Clay, which were nominated for the 2020 Juno Contemporary Gospel Album of the Year. Need I say more? Welcome, Jaylene Johnson.
Thank you so much. The Juno nomination was 2017.
Oh, 2017.
Yeah, it was a few years ago now, but it was such an honor.
And it's such an accomplishment to be recognized by it's so wonderful to be recognized for your craft and for such good music that you put forth. So that's awesome for all of you. So my first question, I get to throw the first question, and I'm so happy. Right? So my first question is actually going to go to my co-host. My co-host, Chelsea Amber, has a heart for women, for guitar players, and she created Christian Guitar Girls, a Christian Guitar Girls group. I'm going to let her talk about that. Chelsea, tell us more about this.
Yeah. So I'm female, I'm Christian, I play guitar, and I just felt like I didn't really have a lot of like mentors or role models or anything to look up to, or like a community. I knew, the odd lady such as myself here and there, but I knew there must be more of us. And so I wanted to create a place for women where we could women who love Jesus and the guitar could come and just connect, encourage each other. We can grow together. So I started a private Facebook group called Christian Guitar Girls. And and women of all ages and skill levels, whether you're just learning your first chord or you've been, playing professionally for 20 years, like all ages and skill levels are welcome. And I'm excited to just encourage women, that each woman also has something valuable to offer in their local church and the music industry. And so I just want to help give women the courage and encouragement to find their voice and to use it to glorify God through the guitar.
And that's awesome. And I think this is a great venue to have ladies come together. This is, I know that in one of the advertisements said this is like a ladies' night because it's like all ladies on here. But you know what? If you play the guitar, you can definitely learn from this as well. And the fact that Chelsea has a heart just to reach out to the ladies, because she said something in our private conversation, which I thought was unique, is that, when she looks at the list of the people that are played in the top 10, very rarely are there women. And yet it's the women, there are women out there that have songs. There are women that are kind of hiding, and we hope that this episode will help bring you out a little bit more, help you feel a little bit more courageous about writing and letting your songs be known beyond, your four walls of your home. So Chelsea, thank you so much for opening this group. I think this is really awesome. So
it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I've been having so much fun getting to know the people in the group. Like Elena, this is my first time meeting her, like kind of face to face, so to speak, but we've been interacting in the group and it's just been a joy, meeting new people and, people stepping out for the first time. Maybe they were shy about, sharing. There are people who will post and say, this is my first time sharing a song with anybody that I played on guitar, and I'm nervous, and it's just exciting to see people like stepping out, so.
Awesome. And if you want to be a part of the Christian Guitar Girls group, just go to facebook.com. I think it's /Christian Guitar Girls, correct?
Yeah, that's the public profile. Actually, if you go to, I got the URL christianguitargirls.com. So if people go there and just hit join the community, it'll take them right to the Facebook group. I thought that might be the easiest than typing in all the Facebook URLs.
I hear you. Okay. Well, you know what to do. We'll make sure we remind people to do that. So let's get on with this conversation about songwriting with guitars. So here's my general question. All of you play guitars, but what's the story behind choosing the guitar? Like, why the guitar of all things? Like, there are several instruments to choose from, but yet the guitar stood out more for you. Why and how? What's the story behind all that?
I started as a singer piano player, and the keyboard is heavy to lug around. So I had a goal with my last record that I would have enough songs that I could pull off a whole show with a guitar.
Nice.
That was one of the reasons. But I think guitar, having come from the piano and singing, one of the things I'd heard when I was starting to learn about songwriting was if you get into a rut or you just want to challenge yourself creatively, try another instrument, pick up another instrument. So the guitar was that second instrument for me, or third, I guess, after my voice and playing piano.
That's cool. And are you self-taught?
Yes, unfortunately.
No, there's nothing unfortunate about that. Lots of people who do really well being self-taught, especially with YouTube and everything. There's lots of opportunity.
That's true. There are a lot of opportunities that way. I would say I'm a bit of a hack. I'm told that the worse the guitar player you are, the better the songwriter. So I don't know how that helps our conversation, but that's a big joke in Nashville, that sometimes the better songwriters are not actually the great guitar players. And I mean, I so admire people that put a lot into their technique and their practice. And, that's something I'd love to put on the agenda, but, have not as of yet. I enjoy playing the guitar, but I would not necessarily hire myself out to play for anybody else.
That's good. Well, what about you, Amy? What's your story behind the playing of the guitar?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, somewhat similar to Jaylene, out of necessity. I was getting tired of asking my brother to play guitar parts on my live shows or my projects. So I was like, I'm just gonna learn this myself, which is kind of the way I've approached many things in music. You have music production, you kind of get tired of waiting on people. So you dabble in all the things, but I'd say when I was starting to listen to Bethany Dillon as a teenager, she had such amazing guitar work in her first record, and it was really inspiring. And I was like, hey, she's my age, I can do this too. And so just grab this busted up guitar that really killed your fingers and didn't have good action at all. And by the time I got a nice guitar, I was like, oh, this is easy, because I was so used to playing on my bad guitar. But that's sort of the gist of why I got started.
And then you switched over to, well, not switched, because you still play acoustic, but you also play electric now.
Yeah.
So when did you switch over to that?
When I got married, and literally that year, after I moved to Michigan from Toronto. I'm originally from Toronto, Ontario, and now I live in Southeast Michigan. I started to write my album number 2, and my first record was a mixture of different genres. So I was like, no, I think I want to do more of a rock album. Like, I solidified who I was after that process. And I was like, well, you can't write a rock album with an acoustic guitar. I mean, you can to a certain degree, but I was like, I want to start writing the music that I enjoy listening to. And so, yeah, Peter hooked me up with an electric guitar and different pedals and recording software, and off I went. And I'm still exploring, because you never ever arrive. There's just, to me, the guitar is just like this world that is so expansive, especially with all the different kinds of pedals and sounds you can create. Like, I'm a keyboard player like you, Jaylene. I started off with classical piano, but the guitar just seems like there's so much you can do sound wise. So yeah, that's where I'm at these days.
That's cool. I'm going to ask you some more questions about that. This is getting interesting. Elena, what's your story? You went to France is all I knew, and then you started guitar and singing and songwriting. But let's go back to, why the guitar?
Okay. Well, I played trumpet from the age of 11, and I became a band director. So I was a music teacher, and I had some very basic keyboard skills. I'm not a pianist like the other ladies, but when the first place that I stayed, there's a Christian school in Guebwiller, Alsace, where I live, and I was staying on the top floor in this chateau. So it's like an old manor house, and the flights, no elevator. And so for personal worship time, I could bring up a little keyboard from downstairs. But after doing that a couple of times, I was like, I need a more practical way. And trumpet playing for personal worship times, it's a little limited, Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to learn the guitar. So I went and bought my first guitar. After a couple, I'd been in France maybe a year and a half or something like that. And self-taught, but being a music teacher, I had the background, and then YouTube, and then having friends around to ask how to get started and that sort of stuff. So, and for me, it just started really as a way to personally be able to express that and sing. And then as I got a little bit better, then a friend who's a really good worship leader, David Lee, he heard me singing one day. He's like, why aren't you leading worship? And I was like, I've never thought of doing that. I was on worship teams. I was the trumpet player. So anyway, that challenged me as I grew as a player and singer. I don't have a big, strong voice, but I can carry a tune. And when you're worshiping, you give the best. It's all for God anyway. So as I grew, then I got to start playing and worshiping and be one of the leaders in our church. And then more recently, a couple years ago, my father passed away. And after that, I hit a time where if you know grief, you know, you get where sometimes I was just like music, whatever, just, I was not interested. And after about 2 weeks of that, it didn't last long. I suddenly, the passion for the guitar, and it became my therapy, and it became, I really threw myself into it. And electric guitar, I started researching, like you're saying, Amy, there's so much, it's just so vast, the world of guitar. And so for a year, I researched guitars before I bought one, and I played a lot of different ones, and it just became even more of a passion as another way to express, and with another sound or an instrument that an electric can give you so many sounds. So the acoustic and the music that I've done before was like the music we produced was big sound, but I love to just picking up an acoustic and playing and singing. And anyway, I'm going to stop there. But so that's kind of my guitar journey. And it's been fun when Chelsea created this group to discover other ladies on the journey too.
Yeah. So when you said that, I love that guitar came out of like your personal worship time, like you like a way to facilitate that. Is that where your songwriting came from too? Is that?
Absolutely. That's exactly it. Especially the first album I did, and almost all the songs are straight out of scripture, and just singing scripture or that sort of stuff. That was the inspiration. And just the one song that you talked about, Cheryl, that you had heard earlier that came from Ephesians, that was just out of a worship time, and just a spontaneous melody came, and it stuck, and it came back another time, and I was like, oh, I think this needs to be a song. So yeah, that's just from those intimate times with God, that's where a lot of the inspiration comes from me.
That's so cool. And that reminds me of stuff I saw on Amy's Instagram recently, because Amy, I feel like you were coming up with ideas, like just because you do spontaneous worship as well, I think. Yeah. So is that where you get your song, or I guess maybe there's lots of places where you get your songwriting?
I mean, most recently, yeah, the church that I'm at is really high into songwriting with the Holy Spirit on the spot. Like, what's God saying? Catch it and sing it out. And gosh, that's really transformed. And I used to do some of that, but I feel like the church I'm at now is just like really been championing that. And it's great because God's a better writer than I am. It's like, just get good at listening to what he's saying. And then all of a sudden there's these lines that you're like, oh. So yeah, definitely such a blessing to have that.
That is so cool. I just want to remind our viewers, you are watching GMIHub online, and you are watching the Christian Guitar Girls. This is a Facebook group of ladies that play guitar and they write songs, and you don't have to be a professional to be part of that group. You can just be a person like myself who just picks up the guitar and just making sure it doesn't plunk, but you can be part of that group. And this is their time to just share about their songwriting technique, and we're going to learn more about some of the secrets of their songwriting. But we want to make sure, speaking of songwriting, that if you are a songwriter, that GMIHub is spearheading another Christmas compilation album. And if you want to submit a song, you are welcome to do so. We are accepting submissions, and you'll see on here that we have our album cover already ready. So we are accepting submissions up until June the 13th. So you have some time, but I just want to make sure that you can send your song. Please visit gmihub.ca for more information. Now, enough with the commercial. Now going back to the conversation, you ladies talked about, you started with different instruments before you got to the guitar. And I'm curious to find out now, when you were playing the other instruments, were you also doing songwriting? And if so, how was your songwriting any different playing, say, the piano or another instrument compared to playing the guitar?
Yes.
You found it was different, Jaylene?
Yes. I mean, our bodies interact differently with different instruments as well. I didn't realize that there are some guitars that you can play as a vocalist that don't actually sound, where you don't actually sound good together. It's one of the reasons why if you're going to buy a guitar, it's important to sit and have a chance to play it and sing along with it. And it has to do with where the frequencies are. you know, and the tone of the guitar with the tone of your voice. And so I think the guitar is a songwriting tool. For me, it's a tool. As my body's interacting, I'm having an experience with how it sounds, you know. And for those in the group here who've gone on to explore electric guitar and different pedal sounds, I mean, you're going to be experiencing something with that sound that can inspire your melody, might inspire or evoke emotions that might inspire some lyrics too. I found when I started to play guitar, I could write things mid-tempo and upbeat a little more readily than I could on the piano, because it is a rhythmic instrument. Whereas I find even now, if I'm going to write a ballad, I'm going to the piano. I have written, you know, some upbeat things on the piano, but my preference for upbeat songs is guitar.
Yeah, I've had that same experience. Like, I'm not a piano player. And truth be told, I wanted to be a piano player and I ended up playing guitar just because financially it seemed like it was just more achievable and we had a, you know, anyway, but I lost my train of thought.
Same experience.
So when I sit down, I can at least like make my way around with chords, but I find like whenever I sit down at the piano, it's always like this sort of like emotional sort of ballad kind of, yeah, it's a different thing. Whereas with the guitar, I tend to want to like get the jazz chords and like get myself moving around. So yeah, I'm agreeing. It's a different experience.
So now I have this question. So the guitar from acoustic or classical to electric guitar, how does that affect your songwriting?
You become a rocker. No, I just
Become Amy Savin.
Interesting question, because as soon as I started writing with the guitar, or the electric guitar, sorry, like I realized like it wasn't enough. I was starting to crave like just an entire sonic landscape. So I would put in like certain loops or pads, and the electric guitar would just be one of the things inside of that mix. And so I feel like I used to be able to write, just pick up an instrument and write. And now I'm like, no, I need it all at once. Like I need to have some sort of foundation. And that's why for me, writing with recording software has like changed everything, because like having even like a background vocal changes the dynamic, or having keys in the beginning and then guitar coming in after changes what I want to do in the verse. So I'm no longer just satisfied with writing with one instrument. I'll write with all of them.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I was just going to jump in and say, like, to Amy's point, it's almost like you're having a collaborative experience with your track, like, you know, with all the different instruments that you're playing. And when I say guitar, like acoustic guitar for me is a tool, my emphasis in songwriting is always lyric and melody. But for other people, the arrangement and the colors even of chords, that factors so much into what they write. And even when it comes to live performance, like with acoustic guitar. So some of you might be familiar with Steve Bell. If you go to a Steve Bell concert and he's playing solo, he is almost in a duet with his guitar. Like the guitar is not just a tool or a vehicle for his songwriting. It's actually a partner. And there's this cool collaborative thing that happens between him and the instrument. I just love that. I'm really fascinated by that, and have so much respect for people who can play at that level.
That's very interesting. I've never heard that before. But Elena, do you find the same thing? Like you find this is like the guitar is a part of you, so to speak, as you're playing?
I would say that, yes. I feel like the guitar is an extension. I'm not good at arranging, producing, so I get lost with all of that. So, and I haven't written with the electric yet, and so I always go back to the acoustic because it feels like home. And I don't know, with the finger picking, I feel like I can get the emotion that I'm going for. So that's my songwriting place, is with an acoustic, and just the real simplicity. And I would like to grow very much as a songwriter to be able to think larger. And you would think as a band director, I mean, I've read scores and you have all of these voices and stuff going on, but it's just like I get blocked. I can get you the melody and the chords, an idea of the feeling that, or the, you know, the style that I want. But after that, I definitely, I go looking for help. That's for sure, from other folks to get it to the finished product. But yeah, for me, it's the acoustic.
Yeah, I'm actually in the same boat as Elena. I find I'm opposite of Amy in that if I like look at software, I freeze. I don't know what to do. But it's nice because then there's no one right way to go about songwriting, right? Like some people come alive with the software, and some people like myself just freeze up and need to just sit down with the guitar or piano. So yeah. So we got a question in for Amy. It says, how did the song Us and Them come into being?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'd love to answer that. Gosh, you know, when you have like a million reasons why the song came into being and it's like you have to pick one. I think ultimately, in a world where there is so much disunity and so much us versus them, and there's so much division, I think that this whole record was really like sort of a prophetic narrative to culture and challenging people, challenging the Christians in the sense, like, we all say we're about unity, but you go onto social media for 5 minutes and there's just these wars. And it was a cry in my heart that if we actually believe the book that we read that talks about how the enemy is not flesh and blood, then we would catch on to what Jesus is building on this earth a lot quicker. When we identify that any kind of anger or hate in my heart for someone, I'm not agreeing with God about that person. And a lot of our own brokenness stems out of this belief that we're not loved. And so we're always striving. We're always trying to prove our worth. We're always trying to defend ourselves. And it's because we lived out of the unloved place. And so I think that song was just like this wake up, like, we tell the world that we love people. So then let's start believing that there is no us in them, that there's only us, that we are all image bearers of God. God, you will never look into the face of someone that God does not love. So that's kind of how that song, and I co-wrote some of those lyrics with Josh Porter from kind of like a metal band back in the day, Showbread. So he brought some of the edge in the lyrics. So yeah, it was a blast.
Very cool.
Wow, that's deep.
Well, that brings me to this question. Like a nice lead into your songwriting process. Like, where do you all start? Like, where do you start when it comes to songwriting? Do you have a kind of a process, or or is it just inspired? Is it just one day God just goes, bam, there's an idea, write it? Like, what happens?
I think it can be both. For me, sometimes for me, it's usually melody that comes first, and then I'll go grab the guitar and try to get it down, and the progression. Lyrics are the last thing that come for me. I think that comes from being a band, that comes from being a trumpet player for so long. And even when I write my own songs, I have trouble remembering the lyrics. So the lyrics come last, but so it's usually a melody for me, or sometimes it's an idea, like Amy, what you just shared about Us and Them, either a theme or, like I said earlier, a scripture, or something that just grabs me, and then I want to put that to music. And so that's kind of where I get started anyway in my process.
Very cool.
And just as you're on that, now you write in English and in French. So I'm really curious. English is your first language, correct?
Yes, I'm and so yeah.
You think so?
So yes, that means English is my first language.
Okay, so but you've written songs in French, like the one I was referring to. I wish I didn't write down the French version, but I know what it meant. It meant, God, your love for us is so big, it's so wide, it's so long, it's so deep, and I was like, it's a simple beautiful worship song in French. So when you write your lyrics, when you do get to the lyrics section, do you think in French and write in or do you think in English and write in French, or is it the other way around? Like, how does that work for you?
It really depends on the song. That song specifically, that's one of the ones that came from a worship time, that melody just flowed out, and then it kept coming back. Another time that was like in a house of prayer set, I think, the first time. And then one Sunday morning I was leading worship, and that came out again. And that was when I was like, I need to write a song. This is something. So in that case, I'm thinking in French, and I've been in France for 12 and a half years now. In the first year I did a language school to get a good base. So I'm to the point now. It used to be when you start a new language, you think in your mother tongue and then you translate in your head. But fortunately now, when I speak French, I think in French. So in that case, it just flowed out of that place. And that song in particular, a young French woman, Deborah Matthew, she's a good writer. So I said, hey, will you do a verse? And she did. And it was just beautiful collaboration. But that chorus just came out of that time. And then there are other songs that I've written in English, and I've had them translated from English into French. And there's a young woman, Stella Bussiere. She's my go-to gal because she speaks both languages, obviously, but she just gets the feel when you're translating. It's not just word for word, but what is this about and what does it mean? So Stella does a great job with that. And then some newer songs that I've written in French originally. It's just kind of thinking, it's going from the theme and writing it and then going to my French roommate, Nadine, is this good grammar? Is this right? And, it's getting it double checked, making sure. And she actually helped me co-write one of the last ones. So it's really a mix. I have several songs that were English first and got translated, and then others that they flow out from French directly. But I'm always, even though I've been speaking French for about 12 and a half years now, I still get things double checked, because before you put it out there, you sing it in public, you want to make sure that you're doing it well. So
yeah. I would definitely do that too.
I love how, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Chelsea.
Oh, I was just saying, I love how your songwriting has come out of your experience as like you are a missionary in France, and then your songwriting came while you were in France, being a missionary. And I love how that journey has led you to, pick up the guitar and to start writing songs. So I love that connection. Have you seen, like, do those cross paths at all? Like your songwriting with your missionary work, or is that kind of a separate thing?
No, it's all a part of me, and I guess what God's called me to do, because worship leading is a part of what I do regularly. And I was also I coached a few youth bands in our church, and so it shows the goodness of God and how smart He is. Big surprise. Mm-hmm. But everything that I did before I went to France, it kind of, I'm using it. So but it was being in France that brought me to the guitar and brought me to songwriting. I might have done that if I stayed in Arkansas, but I don't think so. I don't think it would have lent itself to that. So, being in a church and that being my primary job, if you will, or that's what I'm focusing on, I had more time to give to that. So I'm so thankful to God for taking me there and for all the amazing things that I've gotten to do. So that's one of the things that I do. And so it absolutely intersects. I even got, after I did the album in 2016, I got invited to go to another city, Orléans, and to do a worship night there. And so I got to meet people that I never would have met, and other Christians. And so that songwriting and guitar playing opened up some opportunities for me that wouldn't have existed otherwise. So yeah, it's so amazing. And that's an encouragement that I would give to anybody out there, no matter what you're doing. If guitar is just a hobby or songwriting is just a hobby, but whatever you're doing now, wherever God's taking you, when we obey God and we move forward, He knows how to take everything we've done in our lives and use it and bring fruit out of it and make something beautiful out of it. And so you may not have any idea, or you might think, what is this job? I don't feel like this is what I'm called to do forever.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're not learning something that's going to serve later. So that's definitely a life lesson as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's so encouraging, because I find maybe I'm about to go on a bit of a rabbit trail, but the idea of calling, I feel like people get so stressed out about, am I doing the right thing right now? And it's like, well, God's using everything. And so like, if you have a heart to follow him, and if you're being faithful to follow him today, then you're living out your calling, and he will direct you, and he'll use all these separate things. But I find, especially like, well, I don't want to say even just specifically people going out of high school, but heck, I'm in my 30s and I'm still grappling with the idea of calling. But I find it so encouraging to know that like your calling is to glorify God, and he will use all of these different things, for his glory, if you let him. So,
and that's something I've told so many youth is, if you get up every day and you choose Jesus and you say yes to him, you're going to be in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And as artists, I think sometimes we can get caught up in the artist that we think we should be. I think I should be this kind of an artist, or maybe looking at so-and-so and their career, and then, I did, but I haven't done that. And to reference Steve Bell again, he's been something of a mentor for me. And in one of our conversations, he told me that if you had told him that he would be a Christian artist when he was first starting out, he would have laughed. I mean, it was the last thing that he thought or even wanted for his life. And imagine if he hadn't followed God. Imagine the wealth and richness that we would have missed as a community. So it's being the artists that we are as we follow God, rather than the artists that we think we ought to be, or even that are, maybe we envy in other people.
Yeah, comparison is so dangerous. It can just if for some reason it's a poison we keep drinking. And and I struggle with it too. And I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, God made me unique. He made my songwriting and my voice and my guitar play. It's all unique. I don't need to sound like, and it's just, it just gets, and I'm like, why? I don't know why. I know it's bad for me, and yet I do it anyway. I'm like, what? Anyway.
For me, it's not comparison as much as it's a feeling of maybe inadequacy, of thinking, I haven't created anything beautiful enough yet, or what I have is 5 loaves and 3 fish, or is it 2 fish, but look what God can do with loaves and fish.
Yeah.
When we offer what we offer, be the artist that we are right now, and submit that to God, and let God do the multiplying.
Yeah.
Right. You are watching GMIHub online, along with Christian guitar girls who are sharing their thoughts related to songwriting and guitar playing. And we're learning so much. Guys, if you are watching this right now, please, please, please share the link, share this experience. You're not going to want to miss this at all. And as well, if you haven't subscribed, feel free to like and subscribe. And remember that if you are a songwriter and you want to submit a song for our Christmas compilation album, go to gmihub.ca and you will find out more information about how you can do that. I didn't want to interrupt too much, but I wanted to let people know where we were at.
Yeah, do your thing.
Yeah. Jaylene and Amy, I wanted to hear from you. Like, where do you start when it comes to songwriting? I mean, we've established that the guitar is a part of you. So where does that, so when it's time to songwrite, how does it start for you?
You want to go, Amy?
Sure. Well, the heavens open up, and then there's this ladder that floats down.
So you do the Jacob thing.
I really love you.
If only.
You have no idea. No. Songwriting is actually super painful for me. Like, it does not come easy. I'm not one of those people that will write 15 songs and pick a good one. I'll start 15 songs, but I just know when they're not good, and I don't even bother with them. So like I end up writing just a few songs a year. Now I'm not proud of that. Like I'm currently in a season of trying to write like congregational worship, which is another story. And also like maintain my musicianship and not get sucked into another genre. So yeah, like I think right now for me, songwriting, especially for a worship project, like I had kind of mentioned before, is like when I'm writing a worship song, some of the questions I'm asking God is like, God, how do you want me to describe you? Like, what language do you like? What do you prefer? Like, how do I worship you? And realizing like I have the Lord as such a powerful resource, and not to get all like crazy on you, but honestly, like when it comes to language, when it comes to the lyrics, I want to create something that is not easy, but that is transformative. I want people to engage with these lyrics and for them to be somehow transformed. And I know that that's not going to come because I'm special, but it'll come because his anointing was in that writing session. But when it comes to the music part of it, for me, it's I want to be interested the entire way. Like, I don't want the bridge to be like, well, okay, we got to the bridge, or like, oh, the chorus is so good, but like the verses are like so uninteresting. So for me, like, I'll write 15 different choruses if they're not hitting right, and I'll just keep going and keep going. And there are songs that I have written, you know, within a day, but the large majority, like there's one song I'm writing and I've been writing it for the last 3 months, because to me the verses are so precious that it like deserves this chorus or whatever. It might not even have a chorus, it might just have like a tag or like a bridge. So for me, it's just like a lot of trial and error, and it needs to move me. So I'm just singing out a lot of stuff, and if it's not moving me, then like it won't move anybody else. I don't know if that answers the question, and a lot of the times it is, you know, trying a different foundation sonically, because it might be a powerful melody, but you can't actually hear the power unless you're putting underneath it the right instrument. And so instrumentation, I'm all about production. If I wasn't a singer-songwriter, gosh, I'd love to produce music. Maybe I will one day when my voice is all cracky and croaky. Maybe I'll get into that. But for me, a lot of it comes from the music production side of it. Like I will hear that orchestra right away, or that guitar riff, or the drums. It's just such a huge part of my writing. And yeah, it gives me a lot to work with when I hear all of the instruments.
And do you share your music when you're writing? Do you share your music or bounce it off, say, your husband or another close friend or family member, just to see, does this work? Does it? You know?
When I was writing my last project, like there would be more times than I'd like to admit where Peter's like, doesn't do anything for me. And like, I would get really mad because I'm like, I just labored over this for 2 days, but it ended up being really, really great, because the amount that he pushed me, like, I didn't even know I had it in me. Like there were so many times where like I would have settled, but he was just like, and he doesn't play instruments, but he knows what sounds good. And he didn't write the record, my last record, but gosh, like without him, I don't know that I could have written it. So yes, it's a love-hate relationship. A lot of more love comes after.
Oh,
That's funny. Jaylene?
well, I want my songs, when people hear my songs, to feel like they are, like my song is a friend that sees them and cares about them and speaks their language. And so in order for me to get there, like I would say my songwriting has evolved a lot, because when I first started writing, it was about catharsis. And it was about getting my feelings out. And most of my songs came from journal entries. You know, I was a words person, and I'd sit and I'd journal and I'd circle a phrase that maybe I could build a song off of. And then I would go to the instrument, the piano at the time, and I would play. But I was surrounded by jazz players. I mean, my first public performances were a lot of jazz songs. I had my books, and I'd go on the weekend and, you know, we'd trio it up. And I thought my first recordings would be jazz and gospel recordings, not my own music. And it was a producer in Winnipeg that I was working with who said, well, do you write your own songs? And I very shyly pulled out a couple things that I'd written. And he said, Jaylene, you're a songwriter. Like, why don't we do an album of your own songs? And that was enough of a nudge for me to start writing more. But it was catharsis, and I thought my songs needed to be super interesting and complicated. And so if you were to hear my first album, the arrangements in there and the color and the places the chords go. But the thing was, as much as there were some cool things that happened with that album, I would say that it was over the years of co-writing and practicing my craft and learning about songwriting and writing and writing and writing and writing. My last album was written in a cabin in the middle of nowhere. I had given myself the goal of writing a song a day, and I had my guitar with me. And before I left for the cabin, I'd had some great news that I was pregnant. And this was after a long journey of not being successful. My husband was going to join me after a week. And I knew that when he came, I would want to tell him our news. We would be celebrating. So I needed to write now 2 songs a day for a week. And what I found is the only way that I could do that was remove the editor, the critic from my mind, and let the songs come and be what they would be. At that point, I had enough experience under my belt, and especially with co-writing and learning from other people as well, that when I went to my keyboard or my guitar at the cabin, I played and I wrote words together. They came together. And I would say that has been a process that's happened over time. But the number one thing is my heart is that when I write something, so I'll write something and it was almost like there was a cork that popped off of a sparkling cider bottle and things just started to flow out. It was a really cool experience. But then going back into editing mode and looking at what I had, are my songs simple enough? I'm not saying they don't say profound things, but is there repetition? Is there simplicity? Is it going to engage anyone else? If it's not, for me, and this is me personally, I haven't done my job as a writer. I might have found catharsis as an artist. That's valid. I might have an expression of worship to God between me and God, also totally valid. But if I want my songs to now engage a wider audience, that's when I'm thinking about things like, is it relatable? Is it singable? Is there enough repetition for people to sink their teeth into it? Will they be able to hum it by the end of the song? And so all that experience and bigness of songwriting and this big mysterious thing called songwriting that can seem like it's so huge, it's like French sauce. I've heard about French sauce. It can take 2 days to make a great French sauce. And they start with a massive pot and everything goes in the pot. And then over time, it gets whittled down or boiled down or boiled down or boiled down into this smaller pot of excellent, rich, delicious, fine sauce. And so that's how I feel my songwriting journey has gone, from this massive pot, whittle down into hopefully something that's palatable and delicious for people.
What you said reminds me of, we had Carolyn Lorenz on in one of our previous episodes, and she talked about a similar process where it seemed like, but I guess she divided it to say there's times when it starts with songwriting, it's almost like just do it, just do the creative, it's almost like brainstorming with your songwriting, just let it all come out. Right? And then once it's all come out, and you've allowed yourself, that's creative mode, you let it all come out, and then after that, then you go back and you kind of analyze it and go, okay, does this work, this pull this out, put this back in. And it's like you went through, your process seems to go from almost similar to hers, like just let it all come out. Then we start editing. Then we start asking questions of, who's this for? Is this going to be engaging? Does this make, is it simple? Are the people going to sing? What is this purpose? And, so I just find that I love the process that you go through. It's almost like you said, it does whittle down into that. I love the analogy, the French sauce, rich, rich.
Well, the question is, does it have integrity? Does my song have integrity? And by that, I mean, does it all glue together? Is the emotional message consistent from the top of the song to the bottom? And that's when you go into the studio now, you have to support that emotional message as well with the production. But melodically, and then words wise, am I choosing the same level of language, or am I all of a sudden throwing in a word where people will step out of the emotion and go, what does that word mean? You know, it's things like that. And just making sure that line by line, there is integrity in the song. And this is not to invalidate the esoteric, artistic, poetic things that some songwriters do beautifully. It's just to say that for me, like what I feel I'm mandated to do is to try to offer something profound in a simple and accessible way. So I'll start, like if I'm playing guitar, you know, for those of you who are listening who just maybe want a tip, I'll grab my guitar and I'll start something. It might just be a few chords, you know, a pattern, a motif, something going. And then I'll start to maybe see how I feel or what words are coming. I start singing over top of that and just see what happens. But get that critic out of your head in that part of the process. The neat thing is that as we continue writing, as we learn from each other, all these things that we sort of pile into our toolkit, we'll think about those things less and less and be able to edit on the fly. We'll kind of know intuitively, like for some reason now, if I write a mid-tempo, it lands at 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I just know intuitively now how long the song should be, how many bars, like I don't think about that stuff. And that will happen too, but it's the work, that's the craft, is to keep working at it until those things become second nature. And then I still go back and edit and make sure my song has integrity in the pieces that I need it to. Mm-hmm. And I've never written a hit, so take everything I write with a grain of salt. I mean, come on.
Jaylene, I just wanted to go back to what you said about sort of like that, the integrity of the song or consistency in terms of the message, like, because I've been doing some songwriting mentorship for other artists as well, or people that are not necessarily artists, but are wanting to songwrite. And one of the things that trips people up the most, I've noticed, is they're saying so many things and they don't realize it. And I've done the same thing. So like, oh, your verse 1 is starting this conversation, but then verse 2 is like totally unrelated. So I love that reminder to like, just look back and see, like, do you have one solid thing that you're saying, or is this just like your venting session or all the happy thoughts all in once, whatever it is, like having that focus. I don't know, there's probably a saying that goes like that, but like for me, it's harder to paint on like a completely blank canvas with all the colors. But if there's a few guidelines, a few little like limits, I feel like my creativity really boils up, because maybe part of me is like, don't put me in a box, and then poof, like all of the creativity comes. But if like you give me a blank canvas, I'm like, I don't know, nothing will come.
Well, this is why in Nashville, if you go co-writing, you go for coffee first, or you have coffee and conversation, and it's through that we go, where are we at? Because you want to write from an honest place as well, you know. Yeah. But one message, one song, one message, one song. And that can be the hardest part, is what is it I'm actually trying to say? And the greatest privilege for me as a mentor and coach is help, or co-writer with an artist, like maybe Chelsea will attest to this, is to help the artist whittle down to the core thing that they need to say and that they want to say, and then writing from that place. And then it might be a question that gets answered. Like, you know, people think, well, how do you know if it's a verse or a chorus? So one of the things I might look at is, okay, if your verse has started a story, what does it mean? Like, what are the implications of it? Why are we telling that story? Or maybe a challenge is presented, or a question, answer the question in your chorus, or think about that pre-chorus, or maybe a little transition word between your verse and chorus. So your chorus starts with a but, or so, or because, right? Yeah. That can help me sort out what should come first and what should come after, because that can be challenging too, right? Is which is the verse, which is the chorus?
I've written stuff where, like, I have a song called Beautiful Mess of a Girl, where I wrote the verse first thinking it was a chorus. Yeah. And then got together with two other songwriters to finish it. And they were like, you know, let's try this as a verse and see if we can beat it with a chorus, you know? So that was an interesting experience for me, because I think sometimes as a songwriter, you can get kind of these blinders on, like, this has to be a chorus or this has to be a verse. But maybe there's room to play in that.
And I loved what Amy said. I love that, Chelsea. And I loved what Amy said about being pushed beyond what you think, you know, and being pushed that it could even be better than what you imagined, you know, because, you know, admittedly, and especially when I was working with, you know, doing a lot of co-writes, I might have been more ready to settle, you know, because then it's done, you know, 2 hours, we're done. But yeah, dig deeper. Can it be better than it is?
Yeah.
And letting it go enough, you know, to letting our egos to sit to the side enough to just let it evolve into an even better place. That's really cool.
We have a question from the audience, but before I do, I just want to remind you, you're watching GMIHub alongside Christian Guitar Girls. We are working together here. You are listening to fabulous ladies talking about how the songwriting process that they go through. You are listening to Jaylene Johnson, Amy Savin, and Elena Smith. If you haven't already, feel free to just subscribe, like and subscribe this video. I'm sure you're getting a lot out of it. And take this link and pass it on. Share the experience. These golden nuggets aren't to be held. They're not here just for us. They're here to be shared. So go ahead and share the link. If you want to know more about GMIHub, go to gmihub.ca. You'll get lots of information there, and you will learn about our Christmas project. I hope to get some songs from all of you. And before I forget, oh yes, and the co-host, of course, is Chelsea Amber with me. Well, I'll show her. There you go. And there's Chelsea. Say hi, Chelsea.
Hello. Here I am.
So, a question from the audience, and I think this is from Carissa. Thank you so much, Carissa, for sending this. For all of you ladies, do you feel that you can write lyrics even if you can't play music? Jaylene's nodding yes. Explain. Or does anyone else want to explain? Doesn't matter.
Anyone else want to jump in?
Well, I think I've heard of, so I have a friend who studied songwriting. I think she said at Hillsong or something, but she said that they would actually be encouraged to write without an instrument and just kind of let the melody sort of feel out the melody and where it was going to go. Like if you're able to hum a tune, and if you're able to like physically write words on a page, then I'm like, why not? You know, go for it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Elena.
Go ahead, Chelsea, finish, please.
Oh, I just remember Jaylene said that there was a joke that if you're not a good guitar player, then you're a better songwriter in Nashville.
Well, that's where I heard the joke. I don't know if it originated there, but.
Oh, okay. What were you going to say, Elena? Sorry for.
I was just going to say I got a little notebook to just do like poems and things like that, because I think I mentioned earlier that lyrics are my weakness, or the last thing that comes for me. So there was a time, but we know so many like musicals or film scores, and you have collaborations where you have the music, the writers and the composers, and you have the lyricists. So absolutely, I would say absolutely. That being a lyricist, you don't have to necessarily to be a musician. I'm sure having an appreciation or that sort of thing, yes, that's going to help. But I think you can be a lyricist without being a musician.
Yeah, I think it's actually really common in Nashville for a lyricist and someone who maybe is more of a composer to kind of team up and become like a songwriting co-songwriting team.
When I teach about collaboration, I'll always say, find someone who has different strengths than you. So I'm happiest in a session where I don't have to be the lead arranger, you know, or the lead player, because I'm stronger in lyric and melody. So like between the four of us, if we were to sit down, we have a variety of strengths here. If Elena's more geared toward melody and Amy's kind of hearing this big picture stuff, you know, with instrumentation, just really feeding her inspiration, you know, and Chelsea as an artist has, I think, a really cool sense of who she is and what she would say and how she wants to say it, which I always love if I'm going to collaborate with an artist, right? I don't want to have to figure that out for them. Their brand, you know, their sound and that kind of thing. So yeah, working with people who have different strengths. If you don't play an instrument, find somebody that does and work with them. But also remembering, we're talking about songs in two different senses. One is the song that gets recorded and put out into the world. So that's a master track, if you will. It's the song that is the recorded song. But a song is really lyrics and a melody. That is the heart of a song. If somebody throws different chords underneath the song and releases it with the same lyrics and melody, that's of no import, the chords that go underneath. So if you're writing a melody and a lyric, absolutely. If you can't sing a lick, I know a songwriter in Nashville who's been very successful, who can't sing a lick, doesn't play an instrument, and he's worked with publishers for decades as a lyricist. So absolutely you can. It's a harder road, but you can.
See, that gives me hope now. I can start writing songs. Yay!
4 chords and the truth, Cheryl. 4 chords and the truth. That's all you need.
All right, got it. I'm on it. Well, I'm gonna ask. This is really great stuff. I mean, wow, and I feel like we're just kind of just beginning to scratch the surface here. But given that we're getting close to our closing time for the live, what, if I can ask this, what 3 tips would you give our audience right now who may they may be at different stages in their songwriting? Some of them have written songs, but they're not sure if their songs are for public or for just for themselves. Some may just desire to write songs, but they don't know where to start. They could be at different stages. So what are some encouraging words? I mean, you shared a lot already, and if you had to repeat, that's fine, but just what are some encouraging words you would give to some songwriters that are out there, the ladies that are out there?
Be courageous, ladies. Go for it. It's something that's interesting because with the Christian Guitar Girls, I think, and then I on another Facebook guitar group, and it's mostly men, and there's lots more posting and putting yourself out there. And there's just a difference. So ladies, be courageous. And I think I go back, Chelsea, what you said about comparison earlier. I agree 100%. Don't compare yourself. And there's a balance to find, isn't there? Because we need to listen to all kinds of different things to learn and to grow as musicians and to find our style and our voice. So we need to listen to other things, but we don't need to compare. And I stated earlier, I don't have a big voice. I'm not a big singer, but if I let that stop me, then I never would have been a songwriter. And I'm a decent guitar player, but I'm not the best at that either. So don't let that stop you. What do you have in your hands? Use it and go for it. And just give it your best shot and enjoy it more than anything. And I mean, I'm speaking more, these ladies are artists and they are making a living and this is what they do. But me as someone that is just a musician and worshiper, I have still been able to create music and I love that. And my community around me can sing those songs with me. And that has value too. So what is it? What's in your hands? And just do with that and don't compare but be comfortable in your skin and be courageous. Really, just go for it. That would be my tips, my encouragement.
So good.
On that same note, I love that, Elena. Just a quick little 30-second story. I was listening to a podcast by Jonathan Helser. How you say their name? And he talked about this girl who had been introduced to several different record labels because she had a voice that was beautiful, and just door after door kept shutting down. And I don't know how many years went by, but she got so frustrated and she was like, God, like, why'd you give me a voice if you didn't want me to use it? And she hadn't heard the Lord speak so strongly all the time, but in that moment, she remembers God saying, I gave you a voice because I thought you might enjoy it. And it was that simple. And I think so many times we can turn our passions and our dreams and our desires into like these curses and this heaviness because we're unsatisfied with how it's going, or we beat ourselves up about whatever. And ultimately it's like, we have to remember that this was God's gift to us. The ability to write, the ability to create, to hear, to sing, like that was his gift. And I try and not take myself too seriously. Like I love all the instruments, and like every now and then I want to pick up a violin, and like I just try and have fun. Like because that's what it's about. Once you stop enjoying yourself, it's like, why do you even do it? Every musician will tell you, you don't get in it to be rich. That's rarely the outcome, but you do it because it's in you to do, and it's in your DNA. Like before I was born, God had a dream for Amy to play and sing, and that's his gift to me, and I want to honor that, and I don't want to devalue God's gift. I don't want to be ungrateful or whatever the size of my audience and reach is. Like if it were 2 people, it's like, are those 2 people worthy of serving? Absolutely. And I just think just having God's perspective as an artist, as a creator, and get rid of that critic, like Jaylene was saying, that critic will come and get you. Like it'll deter you, but it's a gift. And I want to treat writing and guitar playing and all of it as a gift, because that's what it is.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. I can relate to what you're saying, because that's one thing I sing. And I know one of the things that when in my early years of singing, I used to hear a lot, you have a God-given gift. You have a God-given gift. And my friends' parents were telling me, you have a God-given gift. And I said, well, if it's a God-given gift, I'm going to give it back to God. And, so I can totally relate to what you're saying, Amy. It's a gift. And when it's a gift, it's like God gave it to you and you want to express it, use it for him, and in a sense, give it back to him so he gets all the glory from it. So I totally relate. Jaylene, do you have any words of encouragement for upcoming singers, songwriters?
Well, I mean, I would say that I don't have anything definitive as in I'm going to say this next thing and it's going to revolutionize your entire songwriting journey. I loved what Amy said about enjoyment. I think sometimes people think they want to be artists, but actually, if we understood really all the things that go with being an artist and how much you have to fight to keep the creative part in that entire journey, as an independent, or even when if you do work with a label, there is a blessing to writing for your church or your local community or for yourself, to being a hobbyist. There's a blessing to that. What I said earlier, that is still a journey for me. Let yourself be the artist that you're meant to be, and understand that God's given a gift. And as you step out with it, will bless and meet you there, wants to enjoy that gift with you. As far as the craft piece goes, study and learn and observe. You want to write simple pop songs or something like that. Look at Ed Sheeran. Every single song is 4 or 5 chords, and they're almost always the same pattern. It's simple. My encouragement is, don't think you need to be super complicated. Figure out what you want to say, use repetition, and stick to a few chords. Just decide, I'm going to write a 2-chord verse. I'm going to write a 3-chord chorus and build out from there, And then the third thing I'll say is collaborate. Find other people to write with, to do the journey with, and to learn from. And you'll learn together and see what you can do. So.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Chelsea, I know I've put you in the co-host, but as a co-host and now back to panelist, do you have any encouraging words as the founder of Christian Guitar Girls?
I think, I suppose there's a lot of things. How do you whittle down what you want to say? I didn't think I was answering, so I wasn't thinking of my answer.
I threw you off guard. I love it.
So I guess it depends if you're writing for worship. you can't lead people where you've never been. And so make sure to spend that time with the Lord, like spend that time, worshiping him by yourself in your room, like getting to know the God that you want to, sing about and write about. So that's one thing for if you're a worship, it's writing for like the corporate worship experience. One thing I would say for if you're someone who maybe wants to write songs that will get out into the wider sphere of influence, be open to feedback. I've had some people who they treat their songs like almost like to the height of scripture in terms of like, this is God breathed. I can't change any lyric. I can't change any melody. And it's like, I mean, for me, I feel like at that point you're elevating your song to scripture, which is like, I don't feel comfortable with that. But like, I think it's important to just be open to feedback. I've had someone who contacted me once just saying they wanted, I think they wanted some feedback on their song, and I thought there were great ideas. I thought it was a really strong start, but I also felt that there were some ways that it could there's some reworking that could have been done in order for it to be received by a wider audience. But he said, well, no, I'm not open to making any changes. So I guess it's just God's will that no one hears the song. And I'm like, what? No, I don't think that's it, but I just feel like people kind of get in their own way of like, of like being a little bit too precious with things, in terms of, or like being really offended. Like if this lyric isn't good, then that's a reflection on me. Like I am a terrible songwriter because this lyric isn't perfect. Like it's not a reflection on you. It's just how we grow. And that's, I mean, if you look at most of the hit songs, there's usually a whole list of writers and people that are collaborating and contributing to the song. So if there's a lyric that isn't perfect or a melody line that could be improved, it's not a reflection on you. It's just, it's a growing and learning process. So I think that's, I think that's important. And then also, what's my third one? Maybe I'll just stick to two. Those will be my two.
Well, I was expecting your
I was just going to jump in and say, oh, sorry, Cheryl. I was just going to say the ego thing. It cuts both ways. So to Elena's point, which I loved, which is be courageous and step out. That's the self-conscious end of the spectrum. Yeah. And the ego, the other end of the ego spectrum is just being so insecure, that we can't look at our songs objectively. Mm-hmm. And then people really don't want to work with us, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, that was my only comment there. And I have to say thank you so much, Cheryl, and Chelsea for inviting me. And I've learned so much from all of these amazing women here, and it's been a real blessing to participate.
Well, it's a
pleasure having all of you here. I just loved it.
It really has been amazing. I've learned so much, and thank you guys for thinking of me and inviting me. And wow, so much richness in you ladies. Wow, it's been good.
So in a sense, we collaborated just by talking. If there's one thing, Chelsea, I heard you say in another video, is that you have a voice. You were telling your audience that there are people that feel like they don't have a voice in music. Yeah. Or they don't have a voice in whatever they're called to do. And if you're called to do it, then you have a voice. God gave it to you. I love what Elena, I think it's what you said. What's in your hand? Mm-hmm. That's what Moses got. What's in your hand? A stick. Put it on the ground, and he changed it. And use what you've got. Because little is much when God is in. I know there was an old song that said that, but like when God has it, he let him be the one to multiply. All you have to do is supply it. Jaylene used the example of the loaves and the fishes. I mean, we all know the story of the feeding of 5,000. That little child came with this little lunch, to hear Jesus. And when they needed a lunch, he goes, well, this is all I got. Can you use it? And all of a sudden, Jesus prayed over it, and 5,000 people, men, they say 5,000 men plus their families were fed, and they had leftovers. I mean, imagine that. So what can God do with what you have? Give what you have in his hands and let him magnify it. Ladies, it was just absolutely awesome. I've already gotten messages from people saying this needs to happen again. Chelsea, I don't know how you feel, but I know there are people that are wanting it, so we're gonna have to chat. So
Yeah. Love that.
But for all of you that have joined us, thank you so much for joining us, and for being a part of the conversation, and for listening to these lovely ladies, Amy, Jaylene, Alana, and Chelsea. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Chelsea, thank you for arranging this. This was awesome. I want to invite you all again, if you have not subscribed, feel free to subscribe to this channel so you know that when we put up another, or we're doing another live webcast, you're aware of it. We do this pretty much every Monday. We're here with different themes that we talk about. It's songwriting, and once a month we talk about songwriting. We talk about technical, we talk about music business, we talk about instrumentation, and sometimes we even get into the church ministries. So you got to tune in. You just got to, right? Every Monday, just do that. Okay. And again, feel free, if you want to learn more about GMIHub, go to gmihub.ca. You'll learn more about who we are, what we do, because we are here actually for you. We have a Christmas compilation album that we are accepting songs for up until June 13th. For more information, go to gmihub.ca/Christmas project, and you'll find out more about that. Also, I want you to be aware that we have, like, you think these ladies are fabulous? We continue this. They are fabulous, and we have more fabulous people coming on board. Next week, we have Larnell Lewis. If you don't know that name, you may know the name Snarky Puppy. And if you know Snarky Puppy, Larnell Lewis is the drummer for Snarky Puppy. And he is going to be coming next week. He's going to be here on this program next week. You're not going to want to miss that. We also have Tobin from Flatfoot 56, which is a Christian Celtic punk group. And why do we have these guys on there? Because, believe it or not, there are people that have asked about how they live their faith in the mainstream music scene. And so we're going to have a chance to interview them. And so they're coming. We also have, in May, we have Mike Stand from the Altar Boys that's going to join us to talk about songwriting. We have Tim Frey, who's going to talk about music business, I believe, music business. And we also have Kevin Paul's coming back. We have John Chisholm from Nashville Christian Songwriters coming here. You may know him more for his involvement with Integrity Music. He's going to be coming on board. We also have Allie Matthews coming. So we have a lot of great guests coming. That's what I'm trying to share with you. And you don't want to miss them. So please feel free to like, subscribe, so you know when these artists or these guests are coming on board, so you can hear these conversations. And again, check us out on our social media. You'll see all the different links that we have to our social media in the notes. And we will be back next week. I'll take a deep breath to say thank you. God bless. Remember, GMIHub is here to encourage unity, community, mentorship, and talent growth. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.